supporters of the murex equals chilazon, they want to bring another strong raya that literally connects the chilazon Techeles with the murex trunkless. And they say that even though we find that many of the Chazal simonim and many of the facts that are brought down in Gemara and Chazal, in Rishonim and Achronim, don't shtim. Very few of the Rishonim shtim, if any of them. But they found 7 gedolei achronim that point to the murex and say that that is the chilazon. So Manaseh, what could we do? They definitely would have had tirutzim to be miyashiv all these deichkim and all these shverkaiten, and so therefore we got to go with these gedolei achronim. Do these gedolei achronim directly point to the murex? No. But if you have an equation that A equals B, and you have an equation that B equals C, so then A equals C. And so therefore they say the following, that since the word parpura is found extensively in the earlier writings of the ancient historians, Aristotle and Pliny, that the word parpura is referred to as the murex, and we find that these 7 gedolei achronim, they refer to the chilazon Techeles as the purpura. So it doesn't in effect what you're doing is you have the purpura is going to equal to the murex. Now these 7 achronim, they span over 300 years, starting from the beginning of the 1600s until the very late 1800s. The Shiltei Giborim, written by Rabbi Avraham Arayfe, the early 1600s, and this is not to be confused with the Shiltei Giborim on the Rif, that was written by Rabbi Yeshua Boyaz earlier. But this sefer, the Shiltei Giborim from Rabbi Avraham Arayfe, was a gadol in his time. As a matter of fact, the Taisus Yontif in Mishnayos brings him down occasionally. Sometimes he even brings him down as being cholik on the Bar Tanura. And he says, I agree with the Shiltei Giborim. And he brings down in Perek Ayin Tes, very much in passing. He's not even speaking about the chilazon Techeles. As a matter of fact, he's speaking about the Ketores. And he brings down that there are certain words that could be different languages, mean different definitions. And one of them he brings down something together, Techeles, and he says, Remes hayam shenikra purpura v'hu chilazoin shesayim boi Techeles. He doesn't go really much into it, but in passing he says that the purpura is the chilazon which is used to dye the Techeles. The Chavis Yoyer, who was one of the gedolei aposkim, the beginning of the 1700s, writes in the Sefer Mekor Chayim, he says, "Shetzeva dam chilazon shemimenu tzayvim Techeles eina blue." It's not the blue. He holds that it's purple. He wants to mention that. Ela tzeva purpur. It's tzeva purpur. Shenasa midam shenikra purpur, and the chilazon is dyed from a fish that's called the purpur. And again, you also have other achronim. You have the Yavitz of Yaakov Emden, towards the late second half of the 1700s in Spachas Svarim, and it brings down from the Divrei Umas Chachmi Umas Oilam ala Purpura Kedavar Bar Shehu Chilazon Techeles. He says it's a Davar Bar that the Techeles is made from the Purpura fish. It's Teres Yisrael, and again each one we have to go through individually and see whether or not it fits in. But the Teres Yisrael lived in the mid-1800s. He brings down from a guy, actually a Bible critic. His name is Desenius, and he says Techeles nasa midam mushel. The Techeles is produced from a snail. Hanikras purpurshnek. Purpurshnek means shnek means a snail. Also the Yad David, that's Rav David Zinsheim, who's wrote the Sefer Minchas Oni. He was the Napoleon set up a Sanhedrin in Klaisel, sort of, and he was the Rosh Sanhedrin, Adam Godel Ad Moed, and he says Umashma Shuhu Choymet Shal Yam. It seems to be a snail. V'chein Kosra Misaprim, and so people say over Shuhu Choymet Hanikra Purpur Mushel. So again, he connects the chilazon, the purpur mushel, like we said earlier. Purpur in the ancient writings is a reference to the murex. Rav Shamshon Hirsch in 1878, in his translation of the bracha of Zvulun, of Sfunei Tunei Chorel, he says that they had a few brachas. One of them was the fact that they were zeichet to the chilazim, and it says chilazim touches it as purpurschneck. Purpurschneck in German would mean, purpurschneck means again like a snail, and the Tayafai Sre'im, who's also in Mitzvah Taf Aleph, who's a pirish on the Sefer Yereim, on the bottom, he's Magian, he says that achilazim are purpurschneck. So again, you have a list of all these 7 gedolei achronim, and they all say that the chilazim is the purpurschneck. So manasa, you have a lot of gemaras that maybe don't stim, you have a lot of rishonim and achronim and gemaras, but the might is these were gedolei achronim, and no question about it that they would have definitely been able to defend their shita, that it's the purpurschneck, and so therefore it's a link that connects directly the murex to the cheles achilazim. Now, the truth is told, must be told that these achronim, none of them write them in any way in a saktik oifen. None of them write it in shuvas and shalos and shuvas. Most of them are writing it in passing, and as a pirish for something that they came up with the chilazim. And most of it is based, most of them, all of them are based on different ancient writings of Aristotle and Pliny, which we'll see that Pliny himself got a dozen types purpura as the murex. He says clearly that the purpura, whenever he brings down purpura, he refers, by Pliny, it's the brandaris, it's a different type of snail. But these achronim pashtus, they're saying it together hashara. They're assumed to think, people say, the saprim, they bring from the Chachmi Wasoilam, and the raya is, one of the rayas is that the Shulti Gibarim lived at the beginning of the 1600s. The Sefer Lulayas Techeles and other Sfarim that are very much supporters of the murex, they bring down that from the mid-1800s, when the dyeing process of the murex became no more, probably because of the xeris on them and the dyeing houses closed down. From then until much, much later, for about 100 years after the dyeing ended, which was the mid-1800s, it was totally forgotten, and no one was aware about this creature called the murex. No one was aware about it. V'layadu al mitziusoi klal, he says. No one was aware about it. Until when? This was until 1685. There was an English naturalist, his name was William Cole, and he basically rediscovered the murex. He found that he writes about it. He says he found this new thing that no one knew about for the last few hundred years. No one knew about. That was in the late 1600s. 70 years before that, the Shulti Gibayim writes that that the chilazim is the daga perpura. So it's very obvious that the Shulti Gibayim never saw the chilazim. He never saw the murex. And he's basing himself on an assumption that since the ancients wrote about it extensively, that it was used for dyeing, and we know that you need a dyeing sea creature for the chilazim, so it's kind of established that it is, but it's mo'edi tochem, that if he would have seen it, and chances are that if he would have seen it, he probably would have rejected it from the fact that it doesn't stem with literally no achronim, no rishonim, and very few midrashim and very few gemaras. Like we said, the hanocha itself, that the purpura equals murex in itself is very questionable. That in Aristotle Taki it does refer to it as that, but in Pliny, whenever he's being very specific about the different types of snails, he doesn't call the murex at all ever purpura. He calls the purpura always, like we said, the brandaris. And the truth is that the word purpura in general in all these languages is a very general term for dyeing, for dye processing snails, producing snails. You find in South America they found that they've had the purpura patalia, they have the purpura persica, they have the purpura aperta, and it's clear that there's no real direct connection necessarily that between the purpura and the murex, so that we should take it to another shlab and say that these achronim definitely meant that. And like we said, even if they did mean it, they definitely meant, they're referring to what Aristotle and Pliny meant, but without knowing for a fact what this creature was. And therefore, since it doesn't stim with Chazal, about the pashut that they would have rejected it.